Hello, everyone. I, Vanchita Goenka, the moderator of the session, welcome you all. Thank you for joining in. So, guys, as we already know that the current scenario has not only altered the professional scenario but also the way how we connect. So, keeping in mind the same, Women Innovator has come up with a series of virtual week talk, and today we have our next speaker, entrepreneur and a tech enthusiast, Miss Pallavi Jain, on board. She'll be speaking on the topic how to build corporate strategy and grow revenues, one of the most important topics for business nowadays. So, ma'am, good afternoon. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well. Thanks for having me.
So, ma'am, Women Innovator has always believed in welcoming innovative ideas and opinions from different backgrounds. So, let me quickly take this opportunity to introduce you to our audience. With a woman full of energy, Miss Pallavi Jain is the co founder of InstaLocate, which is the first AI powered travel assistant that converts the flight delays into free money. She is a rare combination of technical depth, business know how, strategic vision, and a can do attitude. She's a determined woman who is always ready to roll up her sleeves and work in any domain. We welcome you, ma'am. Really honored to have you here.
Oh my God, that was one interesting intro. Thanks a lot for saying such good things about me.
You totally deserve it, ma'am. So, ma'am, let's start with the session right away as we definitely can't wait to listen to you.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, ma'am, we'd like to begin our session with knowing how is it like to be an entrepreneur? Like the normal routine of things, mindset for things. How is it like to come up with an idea and strategizing with it for it right from the scratch?
Okay, so before I get into that, sharing the life of an entrepreneur, let me tell you what exactly we do so that you can relate to, my struggles and, how I actually came up with this idea of InstaLocate and started working on it. So basically, we help people get compensation from the airlines in case of flight delays and cancellation. So, when your flight is delayed and cancelled, your airline owes you compensation, and it can be as high as 40,000 rupees for a delay of 3 hours. A lot of people are actually not aware of it, and that's how $8 billion are unclaimed every year. So that's like a lot of money, and our vision is to put this money back into people's pocket. So like how did we actually come up with this whole idea is we are avid travelers, and we have traveled all across the world, be it the Amazon rainforest or the Great Wall of China. And our own journeys have been disrupted so badly, like gotten stuck at the airport, and our baggages have not come on time. And that's when we started thinking, we need to solve this problem. And at this point, I was studying entrepreneurship at Stanford University, and I was like, we need to find a business around this. And that we quickly started brainstorming, and we came up with the idea of InstaLocate, where we help you get money from the airlines when your flight is disrupted. And then we take a small cut from it, and that's our business model. And coming back to your question about like how is my life as an entrepreneur. So trust me, it has been the most exciting journey till date, because you think of an idea, and then you really see that coming to a life, and then you see people using that product and the feedback that comes to you. This is the most rewarding thing that can ever be. But if we talk about a day-to-day life of an entrepreneur, it's almost like a roller coaster ride. Like some days are so high and some days are so low. And sometimes like if we talk like to give you an example, some days like flights get disrupted badly, and we are like celebrating if there are strikes. And those are exciting days for us. Like, but there are some days where business is not so good, like current times when the flights are absolutely shut down. So that those are like low days. So it is a rewarding journey for sure, but then obviously it comes with a lot of highs and lows. Coming to the second part of your question, as to when you have an idea and how do you go about strategizing it. So if I were to answer that, I would say that I'm a huge believer of D school thinking. If you have an idea, you go by like thinking of it as a problem and how you're solving a problem, prototyping, testing, iterate, pivot. This is the way to go about it, and that's how, we actually went about building Installocate to a company which was doing one case, like just one case, to helping hundreds and thousands of people get compensation, to a business which has already processed almost $1 million worth of compensation for people. So yeah, that's how I believe it should be done.
Yeah, ma'am, totally. I believe being an entrepreneur is such a wholesome journey, like as you told. So,
Totally.
ma'am, focusing on strategizing,
Hmm.
what do you think? Where do powerful strategies come from?
So before I answer that, like, let me tell you what exactly is strategy. Is what do you mean by strategy? If we talk about strategy, strategy means as to what you are aiming to do and how are you going to achieve what you are aiming to do. So this is exactly what strategy means. So if you talk about coming up with powerful strategy, you have to really look inwards and outwards both, to come up with powerful strategies. When I talk outwards, you have to look at what is the need in the market, like what is the right time to place a product in the market. And you have to, when you're like building power, it should be based on a lot of analysis, lot of competitive analysis, lot of checking the landscape and a lot of other factors you have to look at externally. And then you also have to look internally at your strengths, as to where your expertise lies, what are your the domain that you are from, and a lot of other things. When you uh, look at the strategy, and you have to do a lot of internal metric analysis as well to come up with powerful strategies. So just to summarize, it has to be a combination of both internal and external factors, and it has to be a lot of data analysis on both the sides.
Yeah, ma'am, I believe this. Like strategizing, and it's not just a project; it's more of a journey.
Yes, definitely.
So, ma'am, it is often heard that it is as important to execute and monitor a strategy as it is to create and plan for one. So, how do you think a strategy can be applied effectively, and how to get the most out of it?
I think that's a very good question to ask. Like, we because in the entrepreneurial journey, like, I have seen a lot of people who are like stuck on the idea itself, where like whereas like when you actually put that idea to implementation, a lot of things fall flat because obviously your strategy wasn't as strong as it should have been. And that is why people building the same ideas, working on the same ideas, reach different destinations. So yes, to actually ensure that the strategies that you're putting forward to are effective is very important. So how to really ensure that, like I would say, like when I think of it as an entrepreneur, I think it's like like it stands on three pedestrians. Like you have to think about, when you think of strategies, how I would put it is like communication should be very, very strong, and then implementation and monitoring. These are the three things I think you should really look at when you are putting a strategy forward. Well, let me just elaborate on each one of them so that you get a better clarity of what I mean by that. So when I say communication, it's like your mission and vision, like what strategy, as I mentioned earlier, it means what you actually out to do. So your mission and vision should be so clear that every part of your company have a clarity on it, and then all their actions align to achieving those mission and vision. So that is the first step to getting making your strategy an effective strategy. Then second is like you have to have a implementation roadmap for it. Like you have to have functional division of functions, and every person should have clarity of what they are achieving, and what they are like working towards, and which should be aligned to your bigger strategy, like if either long term, short term, whatever you're working on. Every cog in your machine should be aware of their role, their function, and what is the roadmap. And the most important aspect in the implementation part is the metrics that you're tracking. This is actually really, really important in strategy, like when you actually are out to do something. So you should know what is it that in terms of qualitatively what is it that you are out to achieve, and it should be translated into metrics, and you should be monitoring those metrics. And that's the third part of what I said is, which will make your strategy effective, is monitoring. Like, you should know what metrics you're tracking, and you should track them religiously, and you can have dashboards to track them. Like, and then there are other things, like there could be also qualitative things that you can track, like customer feedback is a very important thing that you should look at while building a strategy. And you should always be open to revisiting it, because based on these metrics, these customer feedbacks, and what is happening in the market landscape. So yeah, these are the three things that you should look at. Like, your communication should be very clear, your implementation roadmap should be extremely clear and lucid to every person in the company. And third, monitoring should be you should be done on regular basis, and you should we will be ready to revisit when things are not working as per the plan. Yeah, that's I think should be the, should that's what we have been following at Instalocate, and this should help in putting forward an effective strategy.
Wow, ma'am. I think that was a wonderful way to explain. Yeah, of course, ma'am. And I think, no strategy can be implemented effectively unless the responsible people know the work and have the available resources. I think
Yeah.
your last point was very much it. Like, it is practically the last point, like the controlling of your strategizing. So, yes, so as to improve your next step. I guess that was very rightly put. So, ma'am, moving on to our next question. As we know that the business environment is very complex, and with these COVID times, it has become even more unpredictable. So, how can businesses, devise an adjustable plans to ensure revenues and hence their survival in the market?
I think that's the question that every startup founder is asking themselves, because everything is so unpredictable. Demand is not working in a regular fashion, and then supply chains are all broken. Every day governments are coming up with new policies, and every startup is asking themselves as to what they should do. And I think if whatever like our business has been like, we come from a travel industry, and definitely we are worst hit by what has happened. So
Hmm.
I would like to share from how we went about the strategy, and I think my fellow entrepreneurs,
Sure,
if
ma'am.
that yeah. So what, if there are two things that I would try to divide it into internal and external. If we look at internal,
Hmm.
we started like looking at increasing efficiencies in the system. Like, we took this time to increase efficiencies, which would help us save cash. And right now, like, we had built such efficient systems that when a compensation case comes to us, it can be sent to the airlines within 5 minutes. And that is that has really helped us in cutting the cost of processing a system, and which has indeed impacted our overall revenue as well. So that way other companies can also concentrate on take since you have so much time in hand, you can also concentrate on building efficient systems, which would be more durable, help you during the times when things like post COVID times is what they call it, like when things come back to normal. Also help you conserve cash at the moment, because if even when we started analyzing our HR strategy, or even when we started analyzing our marketing, we realized that there was a lot of efficiencies we could bring into the system, and that's what we were working on. And then if you look at externally, like obviously that is one part of it, and you also have to look at like building new sources of revenue. So if I talk at Instalakit, we are aggressively like partnering with a lot of travel agents, so that we bring in a lot of new sources of revenue. And for other startups, like what I have seen, like somebody like a Marriott, which was never into delivery of foods, have gotten into that. So what you need to do is understand your core strength, like what is it that your core strength is, and then based on that, like whatever like the external, what are the demands, like what are the industries that are still growing, you try to map them to those and provide products which will also add to your revenue stream. Like if I give you an example, like hospitality is badly hit, like hospitality industry is badly hit. So as I gave you an example of Marriott, like from being a hotel to they try to get into food delivery along with a book show. So if you are a hotelier, probably you can get in, like since you already have a core expertise in that, and the demand for and everybody is these days. So maybe you can get into something like do it yourself cooking kits. So this is like adding thinking of some innovative ways to understanding where the market is going, and still just utilizing your core competence to catering to that market need is what I can think of, like what how we can deal with these uncertain times. So, and I'm sure like a lot of other startups are like pivoting and finding new ways of revenues, and this is what you have to do. Alongside obviously building your own internal capabilities, making your systems more efficient to conserve cash is the way forward.
Yeah, ma'am. I think that was exactly a very, practical answer, So, ma'am, what will you suggest to the individuals or say entrepreneurs who are looking to improve their business strategies and revenues? Like, what will be your pro tips to them?
So I like to repeat what I said earlier. There are only three things that you have to do: communication, implementation, and monitoring. Like if you are already not monitoring your metrics, you have to identify your key metrics as to what are your key metrics. You have to start monitoring them. You have to have a feedback loop. Like you can actually invest in tech to have better communications within the company. The escalation mechanisms should really be on place, so that whatever strategy that you have put forward is being monitored and implement. Like obviously, before that, you also have to make sure that every person in your company is clear about your vision and mission. And especially in a startup where we pivot really fast, it is very very important to keep everybody enrolled, everybody passionate, everybody excited about what we are aiming to achieve. So for other startup founders, I would really like to say that be very clear about what your vision and mission is, because we get so many ideas every day, and it is to keep focused, stay focused, you have to have that clear path that you are working towards, and that's when all the people who are following you, believe in you, will have that clarity of mind. So yeah, clarity and monitoring, that those are two key things that you have to really keep in mind when you are building your corporate strategy. And especially in these times, you have to look at the external environment. Just one small thing that I would like to add is like what I have realized is like, instead of going for a longer term strategies in these COVID times, we should all focus on more like medium term goals, because you don't know what's going to happen 6 months or 1 year from now. So instead of strategizing for maybe having a 5-year plan, uh, focus more on like having like what you're going to do for the next 6 months, 1 year to survive. And then when the market picks up, then probably like you can come up with more innovative and strategic way to increase your revenues. Yeah, yeah, that's that.
Yeah, ma'am. To be summed up, I guess the strategy to be is to be a sum of various midterm goals plus long-term goals, of course. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
that's it.
ma'am, I think we are basically done with most of the questions. So, I guess we should move towards wrapping up the session. So, it was really a pleasure talking to you. And it was really a knowledgeable and insightful session. And personally, it did provide invigorating insights to me also. And I hope the same for our audience too. So, ma'am, moving towards the end, what's that final piece of message or advice that you may have for our audience?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me. It is always nice to share what I have learned in this whole roller coaster ride. And my only message is like just follow your passion. Like, obviously, like, and unless, like, all the strategies fall flat if you're not passionate about it. So whatever, like, you really, you have to believe in what you're doing, and then, things will just fall in place. Yeah, that's that. And all the very best to all the entrepreneurs who are listening to this. All the best with your journey. And if anybody is listening and has had any flight delay or a cancellation in the past 3 years, you can reach out to us at www.installegate.com.
That was a indeed very sweet message,
Mhm.
ma'am. So, ma'am, I would like to thank you on behalf of our whole Women Innovator team. I hope to stay connected with you in future too. Thank you so much for taking out your time for us and sharing your experienced knowledge with us. Thank you a lot.
Pleasure's all mine. Have a very good day. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope the same for you. Thank you.